Good, beautiful Sunday, everyone. My name is Coach Darwin Rivers, and you are watching the HR Cafe, Trabaho, Buhay, Iba Pa. We're now at episode 96, Today is June 19. It's a Father's Day. So happy Father's Day to all of the people leaders, the HR leaders who are watching right now. To all the fathers around the globe, maligayang bati po sa inyo bilang isang ama. Happy Father's Day. Our topic for today for the HR Cafe is cultivating a safe workplace and psychological safety. Our guest later on will be senior psychologist Miss Rhea Celine Villa, who will be discussing about this topic. But and as I mentioned, this is really interesting topic because over the past few weeks we've been having topics about mental wellness, emotional wellness, and psychological wellness. So I hope that you guys will tune in and as we start our free learning program. The HR Cafe, Usapang Trabaho, Buhay, Iba Pa, is an online talk show program aired every Sunday, 3 p.m. I am one of your HR Cafe servers. I am the founder and president of the Philippines HR Group. I'm a certified life coach, a public speaker, a motivational speaker, and HR consultant. I'm also the vice president for global HR operations for a BPO company. And of course, joining me for today is another HR Cafe server, our constant Miss Tina Coang. Miss Tina Coang, our mentor Tina Coang, is an operations and HR leader with broad local and overseas experience. She's a general manager of a retail company, an online content creator, and a blogger known for her blog, tinaandmanila.com. Hi, Mentor Tina.
Good afternoon, Coach Darwin and everybody else who's watching the show. A happy Father's Day sa inyong mga lahat. And we're very excited na kahit na papaano, you're still tuning in either on your desktop, on your cell phones, or everywhere else. If you can, please leave your name, your company name, and where you are from so that we can actually give you a shout out on the show.
Okay, and also for our team replay, I know
Mm.
hundreds of people are also watching or will be watching our program during at night or during weekdays so that they can also catch up with the free learnings that we are serving here at the HR Cafe. So let's start. Here at the HR Cafe, we provide timely news and updates. We impart knowledge and experience that are value adding and beneficial to you, our audience. We discuss problems, issues, and challenges, and provide answers and resolutions with our guest resource. If there are any new technology, tools, and processes, as well as industry's best practices, we discuss them and also have them present here on the show. If your company has any job openings, please post it at the comment section and we'll be happy to announce it so that we can connect employers and also prospective applicants. We're a virtual job board, so we'll be happy to announce any job related announcements. At the end of the day, we bridge understanding between employers and employees and also provide inspiration and motivation to the working Filipino class. Welcome to the HR Cafe, ladies and gentlemen. And we start our program with our wow quote for the week. For this episode 96, our wow quote for the week comes from a Indian thought leader. It's Narayanan Palani. According to him, while good leaders care about the business impact, great leaders focus more on the psychological impact. Let me just repeat this. While good leaders care about the business impact, great leaders focus more on the psychological impact. That's our wow quote for the week, coming from Narayanan Palani, an Indian scholar and thought leader. How does this particular quote resonates to you? Let's start with your mentor, Tina.
A lot of people think that businesses are made to make profit. And it's true kasi when you take courses, 'di ba? The primary incentive of make building a business is to make money. The problem is, lalo na here in the Philippines, it's you don't just create a business. The creation of a business, like registering it in DTI or SEC, in BIR, getting a space, okay, opening a bank account, those things are the easiest things to do. The hardest thing is the management of the people so that they will work for you, that the business will grow together. Ang typical thinking kasi before is, I'm just gonna hire people, pay them what is right or above average, whatever the market's paying them, and then ask them to do the job for me. That they're the ones, so sige, ang trabaho mo, sales. So, dapat bumenta ka kasi trabaho mo yan at binabayaran kita. Your job is finance. Dapat tama yung reporting mo sa records mo kasi binabayaran kita. Ikaw yung bookkeeper ko. It's your job to do that. The problem is when you start managing a business here in the Philippines, it's not that simple. It's different when you order a horse to drink versus actually a horse wanting to drink.
Correct.
Filipino workers do their jobs better if they want to do the things that they want to do. So that's why they're saying nga na there should be passion, I should be happy with my job. But there's also the other side that the business should also do their part to make the environment a very happy and easy place for workers to be in. Kasi if the worker is not happy, if the worker has problems, for example, with either their personal life or with their bosses or with their colleagues, it's not very easy for them to do their best work. So sabi ko nga, the difference between overseas and here in the Philippines is that if you're in the Philippines, you need to take into account yung psychological impact doon sa tao. For example, in Hong Kong, it's very common for workers not to eat together. Here in the Philippines, if nakikita mo yung mga colleagues, mga co-workers, hindi sila masyadong magandang relationship. They don't eat together, they don't talk to each other. Parang you can see talaga that the performance dips as well. Kasi may impact talaga yun eh. Filipino
Mm.
workers are very relational. They want to chismis, they want to have dinner together, lunch together, they want to give gifts to each other. Pag may mag-a-abroad, talagang sigurado, kahit di kayo close, meron pang pasalubong. That's very important to the psychological requirement of a Filipino because we want to be part of a community of we want to make our jobs a second home. So if you really want to power up your company or business here in the Philippines, you need to keep that in mind. You can't just push people and say, you know, it's your job, or you know, this is what we're here for. You know na mas malaking bonus mo or mas malaking rewards mo, because so many Filipinos give up their jobs not because of the money or the rewards, but because they're not that happy anymore. And that happiness stems from the psychological need to be accepted and to be part of a group. So parang if they do, it doesn't matter yung mga nasa minahan, the mines are not very safe. It's very far away. It's dirty work. But a lot of there's a lot of these workplaces. Gustong gusto nila yan kasi pagkatapos ng hard day's work, magiinuman sila sa gabi. There's a really big camaraderie aspect that goes along. It's okay for Filipinos to work, to suffer, to do hard work. Basta later on, you take care of their psychological aspect.
There's something to look forward to,
It's
no?
something to look forward to. And it's not something na parang we always think we need to make it extremely safe, by the book. Hindi eh. But you need to take that into account because if you do not, parang you'll pay for it afterwards. People will not stay with you just because you pay them. They will stay with you because they feel safe and part of the team. Kaya, diba? So how
Agree.
about you, Coach Darwin?
Well, I'll tackle this in a different way because you've already
Mm-mm.
mentioned the importance of the employer-employee
Oo.
effect of the
Mm.
business and the employee psychological needs. Ako, I would like to tackle this as a brand. Businesses as a brand normally focus on how can this brand be recognized by people and how can this particular brand attract profit. And a lot of brands would normally do that by making sure that they sell or they market their brands as the best in the market, as they use uh, scientific studies, they use brand ambassadors, stars, or whatnot. Other brands, though, in terms of marketing, is they tend to use a psychological way of branding their products. Meaning, have you watched the commercials of McDo and Jollibee lately? Diba? It's really more of situations where um, life events that is happening in the store that is capturing the imagination of all the people who are watching that particular commercial. One more thing, pinaka-recent, nag-trend ang tropical hot
Yeah.
burger sa
Yeah.
Twitter. And would you
Mm.
believe, there was a report that in the last 3 days, napakaraming branches ng Tropical Hut ang nawalan ng supply. And it's
Yeah.
because of people reminisce the good old times that they've
Mm.
had in that particular area, in that particular place. Because a lot of people grow up having their parents bring them to Tropical Hut. Same thing. If you are a business leader, you tend to not only market your brand the best way that you can do, but also understand your market, and
Mm.
knowing your market is having also an opportunity to impact them psychologically. And a lot of marketing people are doing it right now. How can the experiences of people to your brand be able to capture the imagination or be able to relate other people who are not yet using the brand? In the
Mm.
same way, if I were a businessman, and if I would be able to do this, like what Google has been doing. Google has been presenting itself not only as a Fortune 500 company, but it's actually selling itself as one of the best place to work at. And that's the reason why they're able to capture a niche in the market of the um, best performers or employees who are highly priced in the market, because the way they market their company, not only their product but their company itself, the way they brand it is that they're the best place to work at. People should be working for them, di ba? Parang tayo, nung lumalaki tayo, ako when I was growing up, I always look up at San Miguel, because San Miguel for me is something that echoes stability. It echoes a lot of opportunities. Pero to think, hindi naman ako nagso-support ng mga ng mga I don't drink, 'di ba? I don't do alcohol or whatnot. I don't have any idea of the other products of San Miguel. But growing up, I always knew that working in San Miguel or working in such companies echoes stability. For this, well, quote for the week, as mentioned by Mentor Tina, you can see it in two ways. How you manage your people, the psychological impact of your leadership and management is very important to people. How you manage your business is also very important to the people your who will be your clients, your customers, or your prospective employees. So that's it for our wow quote for the week. Do we have any feedback from our audience, Mentor Tina?
We actually do have greetings. We have Ann Escudero who's greeting everyone a happy Father's Day sa atuwang mga dakilang ama. Good afternoon po from Cagayan de Oro City. So she says she used her native language, diba? So there's also Vince Carlson who has been tagging his friends Giselle Guevara, Claire Amante, Darius Gamboa de la Cruz, JJ Leti, Suzette Aligmango, Resulta Kizel, Rosel Magpantay, Jairus de Maculangan, Cyrus Mojica, Mary Ann Rizky is saying good afternoon, everyone. So it's a very jam-packed show. So for anyone who's watching, please feel free to comment your name, where you are from, so we can give you a shout out at the show next.
Thank you, Mayor Tina. Now, let's go to the HR question of the week. A lot of employees, because of the current situation right now in the Philippines, has
Mm,
thought of getting one to two more jobs. And a
mm,
lot of employees would normally ask, if I have more than one employer, should I also be contributing to the statutory benefits or statutory contributions with my other employers?
mm.
What are
Okay.
your thoughts about this, Mentor Tina?
Ang problem, okay, before you accept another employment, you have to double check in your contract if you have signed any no moonlighting or no sideline or no non-compete agreement.
Number
Okay?
one, that's
And
very
very
important.
important. Kasi a lot of people, nakakatawa, parang a lot of people ask the question na, tama ba na pinipigilan ako from working for somebody else? Kasi after nila magtrabaho for a long period of time, like this should be asked from the very beginning of the contract. In the absence of any clauses in the contract, oh, 'di ba? Kasi may gano'n eh. Then yes, then syempre pag walang nakasulat sa kontrata, then yes, you can actually moonlight. Kasi wala naman or sa company policy, sa orientation, wala kang napirmahan na hindi pwede. So pwede. Okay? Pero kung meron kang two or more employers, ito yung problema pagdating sa SSS, PhilHealth, and Pag-ibig. In our mindset kasi is if I have one employer and then one of them pays for my benefit, for example, okay, for example, 10,000. I have another employer, then the other person tops it up. Then mas maganda for me kasi parang lumalaki yung benefit ko when in fact parang which is tama naman because I have two employers. It doesn't work that way. In the Philippines, our system is not yet as advanced. Which means na if nagbayad, sinong unang nagbayad, sinong employer unang nagbayad ng SSS, PhilHealth, and Pag-ibig, yun yung mare-recognize ng system. Now, for example, meron kang second employer, nag-top up si employer ng SSS. Nandun pa naman yung record, right? Hindi naman siya mawawala. Mapupunta yan sa pension ninyo, which you will get when you retire or die or ano, sa matagal na panahon pa. But it will not be impactful when you are applying for benefits. So for example, may tao nagsasabi, I'm only earning 10,000. Example lang. Pero I want to top up for my maternity benefit kasi pag 20,000 ang laki na makukuha ko pag nag-apply ako. So ang gagawin nila is magbabayad sila ng employed, they'll let their employer pay and then gusto nila mag-top up para makuha nila yung maximum. You can't do that. One-time payment lang. So if nagbayad na si employer, nag-top up ka, huwag kang magugulat pag nakuha mo mas mababang maternity benefit kasi ang i-recognize lang talaga ng SSS is yung pinakauna. With regards to PhilHealth naman, even if you top up, you will still get the same amount of coverage. Kasi it's not naman based on contribution. It's based on whether you are a member or not a member. So if you're a member but a low wager, you still get the same amount of money than if ikaw ay mayaman at nag-top up ng marami. It's part of but that's one of the good things that in the Philippines that people don't really give credit on. If you're a member of PhilHealth, you get all of the benefits and pare-pareho lang lahat ng tao versus mahirap ka or mayaman ka. With Pag-ibig naman, um, eto rin, it goes to your savings fund. Hindi naman siya mawawala, right? Pero the point is, if instead of doing it sa savings fund, why not do it sa MP2? Kasi mas malaki yung percentage na makukuha mo if you top up sa Pag-ibig MP2 program than if nag-top up ka doon sa savings program. The Pag-ibig MP2 program is more short term. You can withdraw it after 5 years. Okay, it's not for life. And what's more, it's always higher in terms of interest. So to answer the question, can you have more than one employer? Check your contract. Are statutory contributions still deducted from the employees? Most companies would and should. Problem is, sa beneficiary, ikaw po, as a member, sayang lang po kasi ang makikredit, ang talagang ma-recognize is yung first payment, however much that is. Coach Darwin?
Actually, before I proceed, Better Tina, in your experience working across the ASEAN region, do our ASEAN neighbors also practice working more than two jobs at the same time? Because in Japan, di ba, isang job pa lang talagang patayan na sila doon. But in other first world countries like the US, they have 2 to 3 jobs.
Yeah. Yeah. That's correct. That's correct. But if you're working in Hong Kong and Singapore kasi, the pay is usually higher. Okay? And pero sabihin natin mataas kasi yung bayad. So, and also the stress is also higher. Kasi if you work in these countries, the pay is higher, but the requirement is very precise. You can't make mistakes. You can't, pag inutusan ka, ikaw lahat. The pressure of being perfect is so high. So most people, they don't want to risk 2 to 3 jobs kasi because they have the main line. So for example, may trabaho ka ngayon. Yung trabaho mo ngayon, let's assume you're earning 20 to 25,000. Ang daming tao kasi what they do is they take on a secondary job because they think it's not enough. The risk there is a lot of people, they think they can do it all. Tapos after that, naka second job, third job, sobrang pagod, kulang ng
Mhm.
tulog, dumami yung stress, mas marami iniisip. So yung main job nila, hindi nila masyadong napapansin or may napapabayaan at nagkakaroon sila ng problema. Tapos yung main job nila, there's such risk na mawala yung main job. A
Mhm.
sideline is cool if you have a main line. A sideline's less cool if you don't have a main line anymore and dun ka lang aasa sa sideline mo. So sa akin, as much as possible, recommendation ko, sabi ko, galingan mo na lang kasi sa trabaho mong main line. Kasi pag magaling ka dyan, kasi yung tao nagsa-sideline eh, di ba? Hindi yung utak nila nandun na sa ibang gamit. But if you can do your main line very well, ang laki talaga ng taas if na-promote ka in your main line. Kasi it's much more stable. It guarantees you a monthly income. It guarantees you all the benefits. Kasi a lot of main lines may HMO pa. HMO not for you but also for your dependents. It gives you paid vacation leaves. Merong companies 7 days, 10 days, 15 days, 20 days. It gives you, it gives you a lot of freedom to do whatever you want. So sabi ko, don't ever forget who your master is. Kasi a lot of people, parang nakakalimutan nila sino talaga yung nagbibigay ng pagkain sa table nila. And they treat their sidelines and their main lines equally.
Mhm.
Don't do it
Mhm.
that way. Para yung chicks eh. Dapat, dapat kilalanin mo sinong pinaka gusto mo. You need to prioritize. Because if you treat all chicks are the same, tapos nagtuklasan yung mga yan, mawawalan ka ng chicks. Yun na lang masasabi ko. Kasi syempre, mag-iinggitan talaga yan. You still need to devote some time or effort. How about you, Coach Darren, sa mga kakilala mo?
Ako, I have a lot of friends who have a full-time job. Then they get a side hustle,
Mm,
normally in the insurance
mm,
organizations or sales organizations. That's okay if your plan is to actually um, transition from your main job and then transition to a full-time salesperson or insurance
mm,
person.
mm,
Pero sabi nga ni Mentor Tina, if you don't have yet the luxury, if you don't have yet the time, you really have to focus on your main line or your main job. Kasi marami sa atin, hindi naging successful sa side hustle, it's because nakakalimutan natin na dahil sa side hustle, nagkakaroon tayo ng less time dun sa main job natin. Marami
oo.
tayong responsibilities na hindi nagagawa at
Mm,
bumababa yung productivity level natin. Eh, yun ang dapat nating iwasan. Now, for this particular question, tama si Mentor Tina, the first thing that you need to do is check first if you have a non-compete clause with your current employer. If you don't have a non-compete clause, then ask your HR if you're allowed to get a side hustle. If you're allowed to get a side hustle, most probably it will be jobs that would not be competing with your current role or your current company. And then, with regards to contributions, nako, ang sagot lang po dyan is lahat po ng trabaho na papasukan nyo, kahit isa, dalawa, tatlong
oo.
trabaho po kayo, lahat po yun, magbabayad po kayo ng statutory, mandatory contributions. Hindi po
Mm,
kayo makakaligtas. Sabi, inisa-isa na ni Mentor Tina kung saan mapupunta yon. Sa inyo pa rin po mapupunta yon. It's
mm.
just that requirement po na bawasan pa rin kayo ng statutory contributions.
Yeah.
Okay?
We
Now,
have a comment from
mm,
Paul Herrera who said,
mm,
that's right, having more than one employer may compromise performance. Sabi ni Hoff, Kan,
agree.
very informative, thank you. And we have Luz Dizel saying, hello, mentors. All right, back to you.
Okay. Now, according to Dole, 90,000 children were removed from hazardous work. So more than 90,000 children have been removed from doing harmful work since the Department of Labor and Employment started profiling child laborers. According to Silvestre Bello, Secretary Silvestre Bello, the initiative is actually aimed in creating a database that will serve as a basis for providing appropriate services and interventions doon po sa mga industries, companies na nag-hire ng children or child labor. So, dahil meron na silang nabuong database, they were able to work with PSA or Philippine Statistics Authority, and they estimated that more than 500,000 children in the Philippines are still engaged in child labor. Mostly po ay nasa agricultural sector. Pero mind you, over the past few years, there have been a growing cases of online sex abuse and exploitation of children. It actually spiked by more than 264% during the height of COVID-19 pandemic. So sexual exploitation is among the worst crimes of child labor identified by DOLE. Now, if you are an HR professional, if you are a employer, let me remind you po, there is an existing anti-child labor law in the Philippines. So please do not employ children as workers. Okay? Next is pay hike takes effect this month in all regions. Three wage boards reviewing kasambahay wage. So we've been discussing this over the past few weeks. The regional tripartite wages and productivity board have been approving increase of minimum wage for workers across all regions, including domestic workers. So, completing the wage orders granting minimum wage increase in private establishments are those issued by Eastern Visayas, Zamboanga Peninsula region. Sila yung pinaka-latest po na naglabas ng wage increase. Ulitin ko, pinaka-latest na naglabas ng wage increase is Eastern Visayas at Zamboanga Peninsula. There will be a 50 pesos pay hike in Eastern Visayas, which will take effect June 27, while a 35 pesos increase wage hike in the Zamboanga Peninsula, which will take effect on June 25th, bringing the new wage rate of Eastern Visayas or Region 8 to 345 to 375, and for Region 9, which is the Zamboanga Peninsula, through 338 to 351. Now, yung mga kasambahay po natin across the 13 regions are also set to increase in their benefits. Naghihintay na lang po ang regional tripartite wage and productivity board na matapos po yung public consultations and i-announce po nila yung adjustments para sa domestic workers for the National Capital Region and Sogaren region. So let's make sure that we always check the DOLE website. Let's check if you have sites or companies in those particular provinces and you are able to abide on the new increase in the wage hike. Okay? Mentor Tina for SSS News.
Ang SSS payments ay pwede nang bayaran using Shopee Pay. So kung ikaw ay self-employed, voluntary non-working spouse, or land-based OFW member, you can download the Shopee app para magbayad ng SSS contributions ng Shopee Pay. You might even get a lot of points or savings when you do that, but you have to be very careful when you actually input your data because pag mali po yung isang numero, ang hirap pong palitan. This is what a lot of people kasi tuk, tuk, tuk. And you have to make sure that you also keep your record na nagbayad po kayo. Yan ang problema kasi sometimes when you do things online like GCash or Shopee Pay, after paying, akala mo tapos na. Pero pag kunyari may problema sa record mo afterwards, ang hirap talaga balikan, lalong-lalo na pag wala kayong na-screenshot the proof of payment. So don't forget that. Next.
Agree.
We'd also like to remind you guys na extended po ang AKOP hanggang June 30. That's parang a few days na lang. So this means that you have to provide proof that you are still alive. So ito yon ay required sa mga survivor pensioners na tumatanggap ng death benefit pension, total disability pensioners, guardian at mga dependents, and retirement pensioners na nakatira sa abroad. Okay? You have to do this kasi a lot of senior citizens might be surprised na parang bakit yung pera na parang how do you call it, tumigil. It's also because if kasi there's a lot of people who take advantage of SSS. Namatay na po yung tao pero nangongolekta pa rin. So you
Mm-hmm.
need to prove talaga that that the member is still alive, and it's extended till June 30. We don't know if it's gonna be extended pa beyond June 30. So please do so para wala po tayong delay pagdating sa pagngongolekta ng pensyon. Next. Alright, sa pag-ibig po. Pag-ibig, we have to remind people, yung binabayad nating 100 pesos sa pag-ibig is really for ourselves. This gives everyone, every Filipino, the chance to own a home, and the maximum amount of money that you can loan from Pag-ibig is 6 million pesos. Right now, Pag-ibig financed 5,411 homes for low-wage earners in January to April 2022. A lot of people think that if you're a minimum wager, mahirap kang bumili ng bahay kasi masyado siyang mahal. Ang maganda sa Pag-ibig, mas maganda talaga ang interest rate pag mas mababa ang sweldo mo than mas mataas ang sweldo. That means, for example, if you're paying, it's really cheap. It's quite good. So it really incentivizes people who are, so pwede nga na kahit na minimum wage earner ka, you can actually buy a home. So I would strongly suggest our members na sana give it a chance kasi talaga Philippine population is growing at a very huge rate. Dumadami talaga ang Pilipino sa Pilipinas. So, if ever tataas talaga ang presyo ng mga real estate. If you think that mahal po ang isang bahay ngayon at maliit siya, wait 10 to 20 years. 1,000%. I'll bet my entire year salary, mas mataas pa talaga ang aabutin nito. So, please, for yourself and for your family, if you can, take that opportunity to avail of Pag-ibig loan so that you can buy a house. Next. We'd also like to share that June 2022 is Scoliosis Awareness Month. So if you're having scoliosis treatment, 5,300 pesos ang nababawasan po na benepisyo. I understand that a lot of us are very wary of PhilHealth because of the scandals that plagues it, lalong-lalo na during the pandemic. And lalo-lalo na the 4%. 'Di ba? Kasi 3.5% last year, ngayon June starting, tinaasan na ng 4%. Retroactive pa ng January. So
January.
napakaraming tao ang nagrereklamo about PhilHealth. Kasi from 3.5, naku, 3.5% ng income ko, bakit naging 4% na naman? Nanakawin lang naman ng gobyerno to. True, 'di ba? The problem is, if you really compute the benefits that you will get as a PhilHealth member, which is automatically deducted from your medical bill whenever there is an emergency or a problem. Totoo lang, mas mataas pa talaga ang nakukuha mong discount as a PhilHealth member when time comes. So for me, you know me naman eh. Let's try to be fair. I was able to get PhilHealth for we've when I gave birth. Meron kaming worker. Uh, may worker kami who had an eye operation, and he got 18,000 pesos from PhilHealth. And he started working lang in November. So you just imagine a minimum wager who started in November lang was able to deduct, I think, 18,000 from the bill because he's PhilHealth, right? Iba talaga eh, right? And you can say, ninakaw neto, ninakaw ng ganyan. It's hard for us to comment on. But I can definitely guarantee na if you are a PhilHealth member and there is an emergency, a medical emergency, meron talagang tulong ang PhilHealth sa pagbabawas sa billing, regardless of income. So, it is mandated for a reason. So I really do hope that everybody would do their part and contribute to PhilHealth and not complain as much. Okay? Kasi mas malaki ang complain natin pag hindi tayo member and then nagkasakit tayo. And I think it also extended to our family. And with that, I'd like to greet Dee and Cot, who's watching here from Rainy Dasmariñas, Cavite, and Robert Baron Sabio, who is greeting everyone. Happy Father's Day to all fathers around rainy afternoon here in Paco, Manila. Coach Dar?
Okay, word from our sponsors. El Puerto Marina Beach Resort and Vacation Club is a partner of the Philippines HR Group and the HR Cafe program. If you are a member of the Philippines HR Group, you are entitled to exclusive benefits and discounts. Just reach out to El Puerto Marina Beach Resort and Vacation Club FB page. Inform them that you're a member of the Philippines HR Group, and you can avail of discounted rooms and exclusive discounts for their resorts and hotels in Pangasinan, Boracay, and also in Palawan. Also, if you're looking for a gift of health to your employees or to your family members, Maxicare Prima has launched two new products. It's Maxicare Prima Silver and Maxicare Prima Gold. Maxicare Prima Silver is a prepaid HMO card that is for individuals up to 59 years of age, and Maxicare Prima Gold is for senior citizens and above. So this two prepaid HMO cards is very useful as an additional benefit, as additional healthcare program to your family and your employees. So if you're interested, just visit www.shop.maxicare.com.ph. Also, we would like to announce that the Philippines HR Group is a community partner of the upcoming ASEAN HR Summit that would be staged at Shangri-La, the Fort in Manila in August 1 and August 2. The topic for the ASEAN HR Summit is the human resource transformative change, agile, aligned, and accelerated. If you're interested, you need to know that if you are a member of the Philippines HR Group, you get outright 15% discount when you register at the ASEAN HR Summit. So just email them, Chris at harperandhale.com or marketing at harperandhale at outlook.com, or you can message them at their mobile numbers. You can also visit ASEANHRSummit.com to get the details of and program of the ASEAN HR Summit. I will be one of the speakers at that upcoming program at the ASEAN HR Summit. So I'll see you all there. And again, don't forget, members of the Philippines HR Group, you get outright 15% discount since we are a community partner of the ASEAN HR Summit. Another word from our sponsor is the coming Tech HR Southeast Asia Conference. This is the largest Tech HR conference in the ASEAN region. And this will be held at the Marina Bay Sands Hotel in Singapore. So be one of the 100 HR leaders from the Philippines who will be given a free VIP pass. This VIP pass is worth 499 SG dollars for you to have a 2-day pass at the Tech HR conference at Marina Bay Sands. This is brought to you by the Philippines HR Group in partnership with People Matters. So if you are interested, if you are an HR people leader, you can actually log in to our FB group page, the Philippines HR Group, and you will see there the login for the registration for the ASEAN or the Tech Southeast Asia Conference. This will be held in Singapore in August 25 to 26. As is that if your company is looking for a health partner, eShield is an exclusive partner of the Philippines HR Group and the HR Cafe. For all the members of the Philippines HR Group and listeners of the HR Cafe, you get 15% exclusive discount to avail of eShield services. So just register at the eShield website. That's www.shield.me. That's .me/ph-hr. So if you register at this particular link, you will automatically get 15% exclusive discount. eShield is a wearable solution for employees' health management. Okay? So if you have any questions about the Philippines Asia Group, please reach out to us or email me at darwinrivers@yahoo.com or message any of our mentors, Mentors Tina, Mentor Burns, and Mentor Shona. Now, we're going to our second part of our program as promised. Asia Cafe, Trabaho Buhay Iba Pa, episode 96. We'll be discussing about cultivating a safe workplace, psychological safety, and our special guest is no other than senior psychologist Rhea Celine Villa. And I'll give it to Miss Mentor Tina Coang for a proper introduction of our guest speaker.
All right, it's our pleasure to introduce our speaker, Rhea Celine Villa, senior psychologist. Rhea is responsible for designing and creating mental health policies for Mind You and other clients. She is also responsible for conducting preventive interventions for Mind You clients through webinars, workshops, and training. So you can contact her after the show if you want to schedule a session. She is also Rhea is also in charge of discussing employee mental health check results, psychometric reports, and provides recommendation to client organizations as they take a preventive approach to their mental health care. She is the co-author of the first ever Filipino Youth Depression Scale, which serves as initial self-assessment tool that measures individual depression tendencies. In addition to her vast experience as a psychology professor and chief psychologist at Pasig City General Hospital, where she handles cases related to gender based violence, trauma, abuse, depression, anxiety, and other mental health conditions. This has made her a very valuable asset and phenomenal educator in the mental health landscape in the Philippines. And with that, let us welcome Ms. Rhea Celine Villa. Welcome to the show. Hi, Miss Rhea.
Thank you also.
Oh,
Um, yes, hello. Yes, thank you, Mentor Tina and Coach Darwin, for giving us time to be able to talk about psychological safety. So, good afternoon to everyone who's here. It's very, very active on Facebook. So, welcome to our webinar. And I have a question. Who here values safety? I'm sure we all do. And safety, according to Maslow's hierarchy, is a basic human need. So we construct our homes to be safe, of course. Sometimes you would invest on insurance for security, and we work to be financially secure. So even in relationships, ang ganda nga nung example ni Mentor Tina sa mga chicks, no? Yung sa mga babae kanina in relation to the topic, no? But even in our relationships, no, we all long for a relationship that would make us feel loved, cared for, and secure. So as you can see, it encompasses all aspects of our lives. So similarly, in the workplace, safety is a must. And that is what we will be talking about this afternoon. What is psychological safety and how can we foster a psychologically safe working environment? So,
All
just a
right, Ma'am
reminder,
Rhea. So I'll already be in the background. I'll
correct.
leave you to it. I'm here
Thank you
just
so
to
much.
support.
Okay, Mentor Tina, thank you so much. All right, so just a reminder, this is an interactive webinar. So we will be using the Mentimeter. So I'll give you a minute for those who are on Facebook to log on to menti.com and kindly key in the code 6222928. So that is not my phone number nor Mentor Tina's, but this is the Menti code for the day, no? So you could scan the QR code on the right and just key in 6222928. You could also type in on the comment sections since I'd be asking a couple of questions throughout this discussion. So allow me to introduce myself. I'm Rhea Celine Villa, Senior Psychologist of Mind You Mental Health Systems, and I will be your speaker for today. So allow me to begin with this short TikTok video clip and see if you can relate to it. Okay, there's no audio.
Yeah. Thanks for
There.
coming to our first 101. 9. Sorry? My net promoter score. Oh, okay, so why a 9, can I ask? Oh, well, my team is great. But the product vision's awesome. My manager's one of the best, really empowering, really, really good, really good. Just so you know, this one-on-one, it's all about you. It's about your goals and me helping you. I don't report anything that we have in our one-on-ones to anyone, including your manager. Please tell him I'm complying. Who? Oh, no. I'm not here. Proceed.
Okay, so can you relate to that? You want to speak up, but you fear the prying eyes lurking around you. So how many of us has difficulty expressing ourselves in the workplace because we are afraid of the possible consequences? Even tayo mga Filipinos, 'di ba? Is it okay kaya to open up how stressed I am sa bahay? Will I be judged if I say na parang I'm stressed out? Sino dito, no? There are times when we are having difficulty expressing ourselves in the workplace because we might be judged, 'di ba? So I'd like to hear from you. What's the first thing you think of when you hear the term psychological safety? Okay, is it the first time na narinig ang psychological safety na concept? Have you experienced the term psychological safety? So what's the first thing that would come to your mind? So I'd like to hear from the group, from the crowd. So you could type it in on Menti, or you could just put it on the comment section. Sige, first impressions muna tayo. What do you, ayun, balance. Ang laki ng balance, no? So psychological safety means balance. Any other takers here? So there must be slight delay in the Menti. Okay, psychological safety equates to mental health, and psychological safety is equated to free to be crazy. Interesting concepts here. And thank you for being very interactive. It's also equated to safe space. Thank you for your answers and participation. Psychological safety, that is the word. The corporate jungle, they call it. So the workplace is so diverse that disagreements and conflicts are unavoidable in the workplace. So people aren't always going to see eye to eye. But the question is, komportable ka ba to voice your thoughts and ideas in the workplace? Or do you believe it's important to be able to voice your discontent or different opinions, di ba? Ang tanong dyan, are you able to do so or not? This is where the concept of psychological safety comes in. So what is exactly psychological safety? The term psychological safety was first coined by Edgar Schein in the year 1960. Nako, 60s pala to, no? It was made more known and popularized by Harvard business professor Amy Edmondson in her book, Building a Fearless Organization. So sabi niya dito, psychological safety is a shared belief held by members of a team that the team is safe for interpersonal risk-taking. So may isa pang comprehensive definition ng psychological safety given by Timothy Clark in 2019. Sabi niya, an individual is psychologically safe when he or she feels as though they belong and are included in activities such as planning and idea making. Simply put, no, the employees being asked about their opinions and their beliefs, plus he or she feels safe to learn and contribute, there is freedom to exchange and share ideas with the team. So, yun yung yun yung concept na, is it something new in organizations in the Philippines, or are you practicing it already? Sige, so with this, you might be wondering, what is the benefit of having a psychologically safe work environment? In a study conducted by Safe Work Australia, they found out that the company that prioritizes productivity more than their employees' well-being loses over 6 billion a year. No, so initially, Coach Darwin and Mentor Tina was talking about the psychological side of brands and organizations, right? So yon. So this came from a study. This is due to the fact that majority of their employees, around 43%, will opt to be absent from work o magpa-file na lang sila ng sick leave. Presenteeism is also an issue. When we talk about presenteeism, an employee goes to work but is less engaged and committed, wala, no? Her physically present, mentally absent, no? So resulting in lower productivity. On the other hand, a company's annual income rises by an average of 4.3 million when the leader has the ability to successfully promote psychological safety. And pag may psychological safety daw, it also reduces company turnover by over 27%. 27% is high, more so if those employees are very crucial in the company. So this is because a manager does not need to force employees to be productive, because a psychological safe workplace would already increase productivity by 50%. So workers are most likely would also develop and utilize their talents in a workplace that values individuality. Now, na-establish na natin yung psychological safety, what it is and what it costs. Let's now break it down into 4 components and try to picture what a psychologically secure workplace looks like. So, again, according to Timothy Clark, meron siyang book, The 4 Stages of Psychological Safety. It's comprised of 4 different quadrants. Ito si learner safety, collaborator safety, inclusion safety, and challenger safety. And let's briefly explore these quadrants. So when we talk about learner safety, yes. So Adrian has a comment here. If you could take out the Menti link so that the whole slide could be seen. Thank you for the feedback, Adrian. Let's move to learner safety. This is when team members and employees feel comfortable with asking questions, experimenting with new strategies, learning from each other's mistakes, and looking for new solutions and opportunities in the work sphere. So when people don't feel secure or comfortable at work, they worry about failing because they believe perfection is expected and that they will be punished for making errors. So minsan we have that mindset na dapat we strive to be perfect. Pero ayun, a workplace that promotes learner safety encourages people to question ideas and not be afraid of failure so that they're able to learn something new. Sabi nga, there's no exactly a stupid question nor a stupid answer, and okay lang to really enhance discussion. So I hope na there's learner safety in your organizations. Let's go on to collaborator safety. This is when team members feel comfortable about working with others. Ito yung may open dialogue, mutual access to each other, as well as opportunities and the space for open, honest conversations. So if you find the task difficult, minsan we just keep it to ourselves, diba? Parang baka I might be judged or I don't want to ask for help. So pag collaborator safety, you're okay with the idea of dropping by your teammate's desk, asking them, may kailangan ka ba? May need ka ba? And you know that your teammates would be okay with asking the same for you. Let's move on to the last 2, challenger safety and inclusion safety. So when team members feel like they're allowed to challenge what has been done, okay, challenge natin yung status quo, we can say that the workplace has been able to establish challenger safety. Team members feel comfortable with bringing up potential solutions or changes, even if the idea of those changes may be difficult or unusual, out of the box, diba? And sometimes this challenges also culture, diba? So this can be a challenge when there are strict hierarchies in a company that make it difficult for employees to bring up their ideas, especially if they go against what is normally done. So if your workplace is psychologically safe, even a junior associate would be able to feel comfortable raising their concerns to management. And everyone is validated here. So this might be a challenge siguro if the organization is quite large. So we have to maybe start from the top, bottom up approach, and then eventually meet, and fulfill the gaps. It might be easier for smaller organizations to to start with these kinds of psychological safety components, no? So as we grow, included na siya sa culture. Okay, sabi ni Adrian, in my experience, challenger safety is more common in the Philippines because of tradition and ego of leaders too. Nako, very valid yung observation ni Adrian. No? That's why it's hard to sometimes establish some components of psychological safety here. Kasi it also has some cultural aspects to it, di ba? Hindi tayo sasagot sa mas mataas, mas matanda, no? Or junior ka pa lang, wala ka pa masyadong experience. So may mga preconceived ideas tayo or biases na we're not conscious of, no? And tama yung observation ni Adrian. And of course, lastly is inclusion safety. Team members feel like they are valued in their teams and in their overall work environment. This is when they feel like they're on equal standing, regardless of position or job responsibilities. And regardless of individual differences, we'll always encounter different kinds of people at work with different beliefs and attitudes. But inclusion safety helps people mesh together and feel seen and heard. Yan. So those are the 4 quadrants of psychological safety. Now, let's take a quick look at a psychologically safe work environment. So, in a workspace where people feel safe, dapat people are leading by example. So managers should be the first ones to manifest this by allowing employees to speak up. So it might be a challenge taking away the position or the age, no, when people are expressing, no. So minsan you would hear phrases like, "Oh, I don't want to hear your opinion on this." Okay, you're dismissing, not considering others' opinions, no. Those hinder psychological safety. So managers can take initiative and foster an inclusive, open environment where people feel comfortable about contributing their ideas. Sa second point, no, how could we be present? I know managers are busy, but let's stop using our phones, no, or engaging in some other activities during meetings. It's good to ask questions, encourage a healthy discussion, and keep yourself from being distracted, as this can come off as being dismissive. And lastly, creating a safe, positive, and open environment. Limit interrupting each other. Use positive language. Do not place blame, and be open to novel ideas. No, it's very interesting to see an organization na iba-iba yung represented ng Gen Z, Gen X, no, yung millennials, boomers. Ayan. So very interesting discussion yan kasi iba-iba yung pinanggagalingan. But hopefully everyone would be heard. So encourage people to learn also from their mistakes and grow. So next is focusing on a growth mindset. Employees are open and ask for feedback, no? As well as respond and build on the feedback of others. So when people feel comfortable about collaborating on ideas and tasks with each other, it helps boost productivity and morale. Ngayon, conflict, it's always there, no? It's inevitable. And it's normal, no, and should be treated as such. So although conflict should not be encouraged, we shouldn't also be afraid of mild disagreements that are able to be resolved productively and respectfully. So when dealing with dispute, we have an opportunity to learn more about the other party and use what we've learned for future interactions. So learn from mistakes. Now, various viewpoints on psychological safety abound, making it difficult to sort out fact from fiction. So let's tackle some of the most common myths about psychological safety and shed some light on them. Ayan. Myth number 1. Psychological safety is just about being nice. It does not mean that you should always agree with one another. In fact, it's the opposite. Psychological safety is about giving real, sincere, and truthful answers. It's making productive disagreements possible and the freedom to exchange ideas. So kamusta kaya kayo dito, HR leaders and managers, no? When as we talk about these points, no, and reflect back on your organization, how psychologically safe your organization is. So yeah, no. So myth 1. Now, on myth 2, no, psychological safety is a personality factor. Ayan. So some have interpreted psychological safety as a synonym for being an extrovert, no? Extroversion. However, research shows that the experience of psychological safety at work is not correlated with introversion and extroversion. This is because psychological safety refers to work climate, no? Work climate tayo. And climate affects people regardless of personality traits, no? So yan. So in a psychologically safe climate, people will offer ideas and voice their concerns regardless of whether they are introverted, extroverted, or somewhere in between. Okay, myth number 3. Psychological safety is just another word for trust. Ayan. Trust, it can only exist in the relationship between two people, while psychologically safety permeates an entire group. So moreover, trust is focused on whether you give another person the benefit of the doubt in saying, I trust you na you won't hurt me. Okay? So that's trust. While psychological safety is focused on whether you perceived a group of others to give you the benefit of the doubt in saying, okay, I feel safe to speak up here because nobody would hurt one another, no? So those are the concepts. Ayan. Sige. So if you have any questions that you'd like to ask, no, you just drop it in the comment section and we would have a portion to answer those. Ayan. So let's go on to myth 4 and 5. Psychological safety will lower performance standards at work. Ayan. So being open to mistakes does not equate to bahala na or being complacent, no? It should be a balance between having high standards and high psychological safety. And myth number 5. Fear is an effective motivator. It gets me results. Now this is false. This is how things usually work, no? Especially in more traditional settings. Our leaders may be more inclined to use yung mga fear tactics nila to motivate employees into meeting deadlines and unrealistic expectations. However, brain science has amply demonstrated that fear inhibits learning and cooperation. Noong early 20th century, no, may behavioral scientist si Ivan Pavlov, yung nag-experiment sa mga dogs, di ba? Found their ability to learn behavioral tasks, no, was inhibited after they've been frightened in the Leningrad flood noong 1924. Ayan. So research also in neuroscience shows that fear consumes physiological resources, no, diverting them from parts of the brain that manage working memory and processing new information. So pag gano'n, no, pag na-elicit yung fear, this impairs analytic thinking. Di ka na maka-analyze, di ka na makapag-isip, di ba? So you would just react to impulses. Hindi ka na rin maka-problem solving. Ayan. So this is why it's hard for people to do their best work when they are afraid, no? So may scientific basis yan. Now that we understand the nature of psychological safety and set all the facts straight, no, matanong ko nga kayo. I'm just curious about your personal experience. So in your current work environment, what makes you feel safe and secure? No? Ano kaya yun? Curious ako. Could you share your answers on the Menti or in the chat box? No? In your current work environment, what makes you feel safe and secure? Ano kaya to? Is it the people that surround you? Okay ba yung mga teammates nyo, yung colleagues nyo? Or is it your manager? No? Ano kaya yung organizational culture nyo that's been cultivated in your company? Let me know in Mentimeter or through our chat box. Ang taas no, ang laki ng boss approval. Ayan, 'di ba? Malaking bagay pag parang whatever you do, support si boss, 'di ba? And it makes us lighter, no, magtrabaho, knowing that meron tayong support from above, no, from management. Any other takers, guys? What makes your current work environment safe? You feel na, oops, I'm in the right job. I feel safe and secure. Talagang up, no? Okay. So talagang malaki yung influence ng top. Okay. So our bosses are so kind. Ayan. Ito naman, no? Pag business is doing well, feeling niya safe siya. Syempre, no? Kasi yung finances, di ba? Yon. So, in the sense na parang psychologically din, parang you're in the right organization. Sige. So, we're talking about psychological safety here. Freedom to share thoughts, very good, no? So, pag psychological safety, hindi lang siya financial, no? It's really more of how could I be open with what I think without judgment? So, ayan, freedom to share ideas. Ang taray nung malaking bonus, anong kumpanya yan? Yan. And ano pa ba? Any takers here? Ayun. Sabi ni Anel, GOTS, both management and employee support. Ayan. Thank you. No, so tao, no? So psychological safe environment, the people play a role in this. Sabi ni Adrian, I feel safe when leaders know how to admit their mistakes and apologize for things said or done wrong. Totoo yan, Adrian, no? So, walang ego-ego and takes all the accountability, no? And maganda rin yun to see sa leaders yung humility and the humanness, no, ng leader na nagkakamali rin dahil tao din sila, no? So, maganda yung insight, yung takeaway ni Adrian on leaders, no, taking in mistakes and acknowledging it. Thank you for sharing your honest answers with us. Sige, so let's focus on how to set the stage naman for you and the rest of your team to feel safe and secured while you work. So let me share with you the Leader's Toolkit to Psychological Safety to get you started. Okay, it's very important to first set the stage in your company, no? So whenever you're trying to get people on the same page with common goals and a shared appreciation of what they're up against, you're setting the stage for psychological safety. And in setting this stage, no, it would require you to frame the work and emphasize the purpose. So the most important skill to master is that, of course, framing the work, no? For example, instead of telling your employees statements that they would fear about or discourage them, let them know the importance of the project and how they can benefit from it. So let them know that things could go out of their control, di ba? And that's okay. Kasi we have a plan, no, we have a strategy, pero along the way, there are variables that cannot be controlled. So acknowledging and stating that tone, no, is beneficial para hindi magtago, no? So whenever there's something they cannot control, we could put it in the table. Yan. So what's important is that they should be accountable dun sa actions nila, and you as a leader must make sure that they won't fear accountability and responsibility. So frame the work. Now, framing the work includes reframing failure and clarifying the need for one's voice, no? Because yung fear of reporting, let's say, such failure is an indicator of an environment with low levels of psychological safety. So how leaders present the role of failure is essential, no? Hindi siya always weakness, no? In the workplace, some people are terrified of making errors, no? Halos hindi, very stiff, especially if they have previously worked in a place where may mga implications yung failures, no? Not just work-wise, but also emotionally. So it's important to rethink and rework yung idea nyo of failure. But it's not something that leaders do once, no? Framing is an ongoing process. It's important for leaders to be pro-learning. So where mistakes are understood as part of the process of improvement. Okay? So that is frame the work. At the same time, emphasizing yung sense of purpose is another key element of setting the stage for psychological safety. Motivating people by reminding them of a compelling, important, and relevant purpose is a well-established leadership task. Bakit ka nagtatrabaho? Why do you always aim to achieve your best? From whom do you or we do this work, di ba? Leaders who remind people of the why, no, on what they do matters. Whether it's for the happiness of customers or for the benefit of the world. These leaders create the energy that help carry individuals and teams through challenging moments. Mahirap maging leader, guys, pero you are an HR manager, no? You take hold of such positions kasi there are key components that are in you already. You just need to be conscious of these things to be able to, let's say, reflect it on and apply to your organization and to your people. So the next step is to invite participation. And how can we do this, no? So first, no, it's important to demonstrate situational humility. So yung bottom line is that no one wants to take the risk of presenting new ideas when the boss appears to think that they know everything. No, ito yung sinasabi kanina ni Adrian. So a learning mindset which blends humility, curiosity, mitigates this risk. A learning mindset recognizes that there's always more to learn, no? And humility is the simple recognition that you don't have all the answers. So research, no, shows that when leaders don't express humility, teams engage in more learning errors and difficult shortcomings. That's why it's important for leaders to be humble, no? When leaders are humble, teams recover from mistakes faster and innovate more. Now, the second tool for inviting participation is to practice proactive inquiry. Inquiry is, ito yung mga purposeful probing to learn more about the issue, the situation, or event directly from your colleague at work. Ano to? It's the foundational skill, no? Lies in showing genuine interest, no? Genuine interest in what your people have to say, but most of the time, we fail to be curious, 'di ba? Masyado tayong task-driven, 'di ba? Many leaders, even when they're motivated to ask a question, worry that it will make them look uninformed or weak, no? Bakit di mo ako heads up dyan, 'di ba? Or yung image nila, 'di ba? But genuine interest and empathy actually makes leaders strong, and these also develops a deeper sense of trust, no? So maybe we could reframe our concept of leadership. Finally, to invite participation and reinforce psychological safety, we need to implement structures, no, designed for employee input, no, input. So focus groups and meetings are good examples of structures where employees are invited to share and collaborate with those they work with. Yan, it foster a sense of trust, no, yung belongingness nila. Yun nga yung discussion kanina ni Mentor Tina and Coach Darwin about belongingness, 'di ba? Kaya nagsistay yung mga tao doon sa organization, no, was tackled earlier. And openness from these smaller groups, no, this will make your employees feel more comfortable. Ayan. So, I would like to ask you this question in our Mentimeter, no? Ano yung mga structures, no, that you have created in your team that are conducive to collaboration and concern sharing? So hopefully this is a good platform, no, to share best practices. No, ano ba yung mga structures na na-implement nyo na as HR manager siguro or in the HR department that promotes, no, collaboration and concern sharing? So meron ba kayong mga FGD? Meron kayong small groups? Kamusta kayo, no? Ano ba yung merong structure sa office ninyo or sa organization that promotes these concepts? Sige nga, pa-share tayo. You could also type it here on the comment section and I'll be reading them as well. So any takers, guys, meron ba sa office ninyo? Ayan, monthly toolbox meeting. So monthly, no? So alam nila na parang if they missed out on the other weeks, merong certain time, no, that they could air it out, no? So this is time bound and there are opportunities kasi monthly pino-provide yung avenue. So this is good, no? Hopefully the other organizations could also replicate, no, these activities, no? Sige, anything else? Kamusta, no? Meron ba kayong mga structures? Kasi guys, ang labanan ngayon talaga, mental health is real, no? Yung mental health state ng employees. And if we don't foster psychological safety in your organization, kabit-kabit yung mental health state nila. Yan. Talaga every Monday, as start pa lang pala ng week, no? Nagagawa na nila. Salamat dito sa input na ito. Yan. HR, SLI-NQC. Salamat. One-on-one kamustahan, ang tiyaga, 'di ba? So talagang intimate, no? So they make time for personal touch points. This is good, no? Ayun, may establish nyo talaga yung psychological safety dyan, no? Kasi it's really one-on-one, nalalaanan nyo ng time. Daily check-ins. Naku, paganda ng paganda ang mga ano ninyo, suggestions, no? May monthly, papunta sa one-on-one, tas may daily check-ins pa, no? So very hands-on. And okay yung open door policy regardless of the position, no? Alam nila that if they have a concern, pwede nilang puntahan yung head. Okay, salamat dito sa mga inputs ninyo. So, medyo malapit na tayo matapos, no? Ito na lang yung last, the third major step, no? Pag alam na natin yon, nakabuild na tayo, we also need to respond productively, no? So, paki-turn in yung slide ng responding productively. So this is the last major step for psychological safety. So this is a very important part of the process, and yung good news, simple siya, no? It's really responding thoughtfully, no? Signaling that what you have heard from your teammates matter. And nagre-reflect yung mga sinabi nyo sa Mentimeter on this concept, no? It's acknowledging or thanking your colleague for bringing the idea or question to you. So in responding productively, it's also important to destigmatize failure, no? Hindi tayo robots, AI. Okay, we tackled this in a previous slide, no, where we noted that if we have to reframe failure and see it as an opportunity for learning, that would help us build psychological safety. So help your employees look forward to improving on mistakes and guide them along the process. And last but not the least is to sanction clear violations. It's essential to clarify boundaries. And it's also important to emphasize that this is not making things personal, but also a part of the professional way of addressing blameworthy acts in the organization. So pag nagre-respond kayo to clear violations in an appropriately tough manner, it would also influence employees to be more mindful of their behavior, yung culture na ina-apply nila, what they should and shouldn't be done. No? So I have high respects on HR managers or people who work in HR, because yung halong understanding pero meron ding toughness, no, kasi you also need to implement policies, no. So hands down to HR, no. You make really the life, no, the heart of the organization, kasi it's all about people. Ayan. So in responding productively in the workplace, I'd like to hear from you, kayo sa audience, no. When someone comes to you with bad news, how do you usually respond? No, kamusta? Kasi psychological safety matters, no, depending on how you receive certain issues, no. And this is anonymous, no, sa Menti. Wala namang mga names. Pero usually, no, kamusta kayo? When someone comes to you with bad news, how do you usually respond? Yan. Have you emphasized in your team that they can always learn more? O parang you'll really flare up? Okay, do you make sure it's acknowledged in an appropriate way, o you specifically offer help and support to guide? Kamusta kayo? Yon. Kasi it's inevitable, no? There will be challenges. So how do you take in bad news? Any sharing? So these steps, no, matter when we establish psychological safety in your organization. Yan. Ang silent na Mentimeter. Kamusta kayo when you hear bad news? How do you usually respond? Going once, going yon. Ang laki ng openly. Okay, understood. Yan. So this is good, no? Despite na parang you wanna inside sa loob-loob nyo parang shucks, this is big, this is a big mistake, pero you still take in openly. Seek first to understand, no? Kasi marami palang versions ng story, no? Instead of reacting to the emotions that you first felt when you heard the news, no? Magandang kaya sana nagma-mindfulness yung mga HR managers, no? Para you could lengthen the space between the trigger and your response, no? So seek first to understand. Um, ayan. Sabi ni Rochelle, nagte-thank you pa siya, no? Kasi sinabi sa kanya, no? That's good. And do it objectively. Ayan. Naku, parang ang sasarap maging kaibigan ng mga HR managers. Ayan. Openly, honestly. Ayan. Thank you so much for Be Marites Investigate. Okay, tama, no? Sige, that's good. So let me end this discussion, no, with a quote from Amy Edmondson. At siya yung author ng Fearless Organization. I hope you could get a copy and read, no? She said, no, it's so much better to be in a workplace where you can be your real self and contribute to the work in a meaningful way. Balik tayo kay Maslow, no? Maslow's hierarchy of needs tells us that we either step forward into growth or step back into safety. By keeping our employees safe and secure, then we can propel them towards their growth and inspire them to be the best that they can be. Ayan, may pahabol si Adrian. Respond with empathy. Thank you so much for giving me time. Right now, we'll be doing the question and answer. So while we're waiting, if you have questions, we just like to flash our QR code for the survey. This is mind you, no, just so for me to learn more, or if you have other content that you'd like us to handle in the future, that would be cool as well. Ayan, sabi ni Anel, entertain and thank them for being honest and investigate. Ayun, salamat na marami. And follow us on our social media pages. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. So I'd probably like to call on Ed, or if ever, ayun, back to you, Mentor Tina. Thank you so
Hi,
much.
do we have a slide para at least you have the company name and then how to contact you for
Mhm.
future, and then what particularly, like what type of events that or webinars that you do?
Okay.
Yan,
Um,
yan, yan. Perfect.
Yan. Okay, so we are a mental health company, no? We want you to address mental health in a preventative way. So, bago kayo mapunta sa depression o ma-diagnose with anxiety, talk to a psychologist already. And I am a psychologist. Ganito yung mukha ng psychologist if you haven't seen one. But yon, we are a mental health company. And I just like MC, please put on the social media pages. So these are just our contact details in case you'd like to subscribe to our weekly campaigns, no, about mental health. That's free. Everything's free when it comes to content. And if you'd like us to promote how to build psychological safety in your organizations, then you could just contact us in Instagram or our Facebook. No, there's someone who would respond. Thank you so much for the time, Mentor Tina.
All right. I'm also going to add Edward to the stream for the Q&A, and we can keep this slide so that everyone will know how to contact you as we tackle on the question and answer. We'd also like to invite our viewers to please leave your comments and your questions onto the chat box, and we'll read it so that our speaker will be able to answer it. Um, Ma'am Rhea, you've done so many. Would you mind introducing Edward?
Sure. Edward here is our business development associate. So he's the first touch point that you would talk to in case you're very curious on how to create, let's say, a mental health program in your organization, or if you would like to oblige with the RA 11036, the mental health law. So we also help organizations create mental health policies. And of course, if you, for your EAP, assistance program, no, we have licensed psychologists ready to hear out your employees. So I'll give the floor to Ed.
Yes, I just thank you, Rhea. Thank you, Mentor, well, Rhea, and thank you, Mentor Tina. Thank you, Coach Darwin. I don't want to do a pitch today about,
No.
mind you, the idea was really to focus on Rhea's message. But as Rhea pointed out, Mind You is 2 years old and was founded by a group of people who have been through mental health issues. And and that includes a lot of us, myself as well. And the goal really is to try to bring the mental health story to corporates, to government, to any sort of organizations that are out there, and have those organizations provide a facility whereby their employees can anonymously get assistance if, for instance, some of their thoughts are becoming darker than they should be, if their sadness is lasting longer than is normal, if their anxiety is not something that happens occasionally but is there all the time. So they have an ability to be able to use a very simple dashboard and then speak to one of the many psychologists that Rhea manages. And we have a whole team of psychologists. And it's important to point out all of the team of psychologists that Rhea has on board are from the Philippines. So, we're focused on the Philippines. We have, what we want to be able to do is make people comfortable and encourage them to pick up the phone and anonymously be able to engage with these psychologists and get help. From the corporate's perspective, you know, engaged employees help help the companies make money, help the companies, as you pointed out, Tina, earlier, create happiness so that people are more productive. And we also help them be able to comply, as Rhea pointed out, with the Mental Health Act. And we help them with being able to understand some of the situations that may be occurring within their organizations and what they should do from a management perspective to create a better environment where, if anxiety does exist, if depression does exist, what do you do about it? And it sounds very simple, but it requires the expertise of people like Rhea and her specialized team to do that. So that's what we do.
All
And
right.
as Rhea pointed out, please follow us. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, um, all of the other social media sites. So please come, please have a look, and ask us any questions you'd like to
All right.
ask. So that's it. Thank you very
Let's
much.
let's keep this slide there, and I'll start with a question and answer. So for anyone who wants to ask, please leave your questions onto the chat box and I'll read it for our guests to answer. So my first question is, given your extensive experience working with Filipino workers and businesses, what are the common mental health issues have you encountered? Because there should be a pattern, right?
Mhm.
So when you deal with across industries, across regions, across the islands, right? Across the different type of size of company, what's the most maybe top three common issues that Filipino workers have? Because identifying the problem is the first step to actually solving the problem.
Mhm. Thank you, Mentor Tina. The common mental health concerns that we are addressing with employees that we take care of would
Mm,
revolve into stress.
stress.
Yes, everything starts from stress. Stress is if you could not keep up or solve that stress, no, it
Mm,
escalates now into a mental health challenge. So if you can't handle a stressor, for example, with finances, then it could develop into anxiety symptoms.
mm,
If you don't have harmony in the workplace, it
mm,
could escalate into depressive symptoms. So stress
mm,
is interesting because you don't see it initially, and we are not in the Philippines. We are not brought to really understand our emotions, like right, Mentor Tina, in school. We are, if you want to be
yeah,
good in math, you study math. If you
yeah.
want to be good in science, you study science. But if you want to be good in your emotions, you also have to study your emotions. We have a cultural aspect where tayo yung last, diba? We work for
Mm,
family, for our family, for our loved ones, and we're the
mm,
last we're the last priority. But it's not selfish to think about yourself first, no, because you can't give what you don't have. If you're stressed out, you cannot help your loved one. If you're stressed out, you can't perform at work. So everything boils to stress, and it just escalates to anxiety and depression. So it involves stress, anxiety, and depression when handling common mental health concerns, and it involves family, finances, and workplace stressors. So those are the top three.
You're correct in saying that stress is one of the biggest problems. Kasi almost every problem at work can be parang identified as a stressor or stress. But and you were also correct that many of us were not trained at an early age on how to manage our own stressors, right? Kasi we, especially for very large companies, when you recruit people and interview them, it's not really like EQ is not the standard way of recruiting it. It's usually
Mm,
competency, work
IQ.
ethics, but
Mhm.
there's not really a parang test na how are you with stress, right? Like
Mm,
how high is your tolerance for stress or for outside. Ha- and that I think is a problem because it seems that people are hiring blindly because you're
mhm,
not taking into account the employee's capacity to manage your stress well. So when you just pasok ka lang ng pasok, when you just continuously recruit and not taking that in mind, parang of course you'll have all of these people that you have to take care of, and many of them have different stress levels, tolerances, and needs and requirements. So how can mind you and how can you guys like help the company with that, given that we see it's a new pioneer. It seems that it's really something new, right? Like you can't discriminate people who blows up. But
mhm,
what can companies do to recruit better? Because we don't take into account the people's capability to take on stress.
mhm. Yeah, that's a very good um, analogy and explanation, Mentor Tina. Um, First of all, we need to
Mm.
maybe revise some assessments. And
Mm-hmm.
second, if you involve a company that focuses on the mental health aspect, we are already implementing a preventative approach. So
Okay.
in case that you hired someone who's not stressed out when they came in,
Right.
pero stressed out when they're in the organization, we
Yeah.
also have to make preventative measures. So
Mm-hmm.
before it you explode, because stress, one stress, second stress, it just piles up, and then we
Accumulates.
all
Yeah.
have breaking points, right? But what we're advocating is talk to a psychologist already, even if it's about common stressors like traffic or the gas increase or price increase, or even problems at work. Because when you talk to a psychologist, it gives you a neutral take on the situation. You won't be judged because you're the boss. You won't get we're not marites, we can tell anyone because we're bounded by oath on confidentiality. So having a psychologist as an outside source to vent and air out uh, has a higher batting average to handle stress. So that is what we're advocating. And there's a productivity cost, no, every time an employee could not work because of mental health concerns. So you're losing money also. The organization is losing money. So if you bring in psychologists, for example, like Mind You, then we are taking care of your productivity in a sense. So
Mm.
that is a cultural intervention.
We do have a question from the board. Sorry, just a bit. Adrian Pantoniel is asking how to best deal with calling out a supervisor's mistake or lapse in decision making, or if he or she is denying it, even if there's evidence to it.
Oo nga, nako, mukhang common din ito, no, Adrian, in organizations, because sometimes it's about the position already, no? Um, I hope you have grievancy machineries in your organization where you try to talk straight to the person. If not, you could elevate, and the policy would protect you. However, it would be interesting also to understand, no, why kaya is my supervisor like that, no. It's also good to have a clear mindset, no, na why do we want to give them feedback, no. So maybe if you approach them as, hey boss, um, clearly there's some lapse here, so why aren't you taking charge? Or if you have an honest heart to heart talk that is not really targeting the denial, but understanding their behavior, then maybe they'll open up, and you might be the reason that they could express, no, and that is psychological safety. So here in this situation, there are a lot of emotions or reasons behind certain actions, no. So yon, so maybe may pinagdadaanan yung boss mo or the supervisor, and hopefully you could formulate system improvements, no, or processes to make things or interactions better, no. So my take here is, if you have a grievance machinery in place, use it. If not, maybe hindi combative, but trying to understand why isn't this supervisor taking charge of they're not accountable, then maybe it could spur change in your organization to handle and create systems. Yeah.
Edward, your thoughts?
Yeah, I wanted to add something that's not related to that specific question, but make a comment in general. So, we've been talking a lot about, talking and interacting with a psychologist, and there are probably people out there who are thinking, "Oh my God, that's a great idea, but that's what is that? 3,500, 5,000, 4,000? How is this going to? How am I going to do that?" And I'm not going to go into all of the details here for the sake of brevity, but Mind You works with organizations, and the goal here is to bring that cost down dramatically. So, in the way we structure the solution with organizations, and essentially the interactions are funded by the organization, the interaction costs with the psychologists are brought down dramatically. I mean, really, really drastically, to the point where for the 2 years that we've been operating, we have always interacted only with on a B2C or a business to commercial basis. And we're about to embark on a business to consumer model in the next 1 or 2 months, because of this sort of scales of economy. And so when Raya talks about speaking with psychologists, I guess my message is, please don't be afraid of that. When you talk to us and when you speak with us, we'll be able to explain how that works in a way where it's not a $5,000 or 5,000 peso hit every time you pick up the phone. So, the idea is to really actually help, and you can't
Would
help
you
if it's too
have
expensive.
a range at the tentative range at the moment, introductory soft opening type of range for B2C, direct to consumer?
No,
Would you
I'd be
have a
jumping.
range right now?
I would love to tell you, but I'd be jumping the gun because I don't know. The B2B business is thriving. We have a tremendous amount of very, very large organizations who are using us. The B2C is in the final stages of going live. I think we're 2 months away. So I think my answer is, watch this space. I think we'll tell everybody once we know, the details of that and we go live with it.
Okay, and with regards to that, I'm going to answer Adrian's question as well on how to call out the supervisor's mistake. And given that I do handle a leadership role, well, there is no problem in calling out another person's mistake, so long as you govern by following the concept of good faith. It's very dangerous to call out other people's mistakes here in the Philippines, because sometimes it's easy for people to say na humihirit ka, which means that you're actually giving feedback maliciously without the other person's well-being in mind. Because maraming ganun eh. Like, for example, colleague to colleague, same rank, or subordinate to a leadership role. Yung sometimes we can't help but humihirit tayo. We say things, but it's not really to solve the problem, but it's to point out that supervisor's mistakes. Kaya napapahiya yung tao. There is a difference between calling out or showing light to the mistake because you want to correct it so it won't happen again, because there was actually something that happened that was negligent, versus naninira ka You actually don't like your supervisor and you're saying it because it's like in a way like, dati pinapagalitan mo ko. Ngayon that you made a mistake, I'm actually going to point it out para mapahiya ka sa other people. So for me, if you're going to talk to your supervisor, number one, for find out what your intentions are. Because if you're giving feedback maliciously, recheck your heart. It should follow good faith. Number two, if you're going to call out the solve the problem. Solve the problem. Don't focus too much on the individual. Kasi tayo, how can I call out a supervisor's mistake? Instead of looking at that way, why not look at it as how do you correct the mistake so it won't happen to your organization again? Try to remove the personality, try to remove the attack, and actually just focus on problem solving. Because anybody in the organization will be appreciative if you're trying to solve a problem. But if you're just creating dissent, yung nag-aaway-away, marites, then it's not really that healthy in the first place. Um, we have another question on the floor asking for a friend how to deal with plastic colleagues who are backstabbers and causes stress. There.
There. Nako, keep calm first, no? If you could tell your friend Adrian, once you discover that someone backstabs you, syempre, there are intense feelings of anger, pressure, and sadness, no? Usually they develop. So try to stay calm first. Find out exactly what happened. Because if we react right away, it will might do more harm than good. So find muna the facts, no? Bakit, where is this valid? Where does it come from? And then if you could go straight to that coworker, that would be great. So it's a first-hand experience. You could also involve your supervisor if it's more complicated, or if it's work-related, and eventually create a plan to protect yourself in terms of boundaries. Because we can't control the other person. So does do their opinions matter? No, am I secured enough to parang take it in, or address it, or so set those healthy boundaries also, kasi if we get affected all the time, it's something we cannot control, no? Pero I'm sure that an organization have protective measures to address gossip, or yun nga, backstabbing. It's very sometimes it's common on certain organizations. I just want to pass on the floor to either Ed or Mentor Tina.
I can do it. We've had a situation recently, this week lang, wherein the person felt that another supervisor didn't like him as much. So nafe-feel niya kasi parang etong tao na to hindi siya masyado pinapansin, the person doesn't talk to him as much, pretty much ignores him. So the person really feels very uncomfortable. And for me, ang advice ko sa kanya is, backstabbers are only powerful in the dark. People who are plastic and backstabbers are only powerful because you say nothing at all. You yourself feel uncomfortable while they are chit-chatting, and so they're creating a lot of havoc on the side. And one way to counter backstabbing plastic people is to communicate in front, because the thing is, it's a natural reaction for us to avoid conflict, to not face the person when we feel lang, hindi totoo ha, when we feel that this person don't like us or is talking badly about us, or to disapprove of us. But in the absence of any concrete evidence, ang sinasabi ko, it might be helpful for people to be less concerned about what the other person thinks. Kasi a lot of these plastic backstabbers are not really the decision makers in the company. They just exist because they are plastic backstabbers, and they exist everywhere in any company. And if you give them the power to hurt you and to make you feel uncomfortable, it will be it's a start of a few days, a few weeks, a few months of hell for you. Kasi it's how you feel. But whereas for me, sabi ko, look, if you're going to do your job very well, and wag mong papansinin tong mga tao na to kasi technically there's no impact to your performance. They're not your decision makers, they're not your bosses. They're mga chismosa na matagal na nandoon sa kumpanya. And if you give them the power to hurt you, they will. But if you actually focus on your performance and who has the power to actually promote you, it will come to the time that kayo pa yung magiging boss nila. Because these people, they exist because they love to work in a very chismosa environment. And I'm sure you're not the only one that they're backstabbing. They're backstabbing everyone too. Pero if you don't give them the power and just mind your own business and actually do a good job and show to the people what you're capable of, kahit ano sinabi nila sa'yo, hindi ka matatablan. But if you allow them to hurt you and to demotivate you to the point na alis ka sa company, ikaw pa yung ano, what do you call it? Ikaw pa yung malulugi, hindi sila. Don't let them overpower you. You should overpower them. Kasi madali lang sila mawala sa kumpanya, wag mo lang masyadong pansinin. Edward, do you know what plastic is?
I'm guessing.
Yeah, plastic means superficial people who backstab you in the back. There's a lot of
Aha.
that in the Philippines. Like if a colleague don't like you for whatever reason, they'll actually talk about you behind your back. And it's very uncomfortable for many people and it causes stress. So Princess Anne Onkyatko is asking, may I ask, what is your insight about workplace relationship? This actually can result in uncomfortable situations for the people involved as well as the workers. How can this be addressed by HR and management? Edward, workplace relationships.
I have to absolutely pass this one to Rhea. She's much more qualified than I am on this. Rhea?
Actually, I want to pass it to Mentor Tina, but
Yeah, comment
because it's
lang.
the
Sige, kasi
HR component. Sige.
workplace relation, word
Mhm.
K-drama, di ba
Mhm.
uso yun?
Oo nga eh. It depends on the organization, the values that they're in. Sometimes it's allowed, sometimes it's not. But whether in a relationship or not, things have to be professional in the workplace. In case you are in a relationship with a colleague, uh, try to do it outside office hours, of course, because whether we like it or not, you will be seen with one error. It might be associated with it psychologically, no. So try to have those healthy boundaries in place. And made Mentor Tina.
I understand why workplace relationships happen because Filipinos are romantics and sometimes work is boring that you want it's very exciting to meet somebody really cute and whom you like and who likes you back. But there are many dangers of workplace relationship. First, it's comfortable if it works out. It's uncomfortable if they break up. That's one. There's a lot of drama that comes along. No matter how much you say a person is professional, there's still a lot of drama that comes along if they break up and if they continue to work each other. So you have to make sure that both parties are adults and they know the consequences of it if it doesn't work out. The second one is instead of working, everyone spends a substantial amount of time gossiping about the couple, which might not be very productive for the entire company. There might be instances of favoritism wherein maybe a subordinate versus a boss. So if they're in a relationship together, there might be instances where the boss might give favor to the subordinate just because girlfriend niya or boyfriend niya. It might also be a problem later on. Prepare for sexual harassment. Men who are working in the Philippines, sexual harassment and rape allegations are real. Okay, it doesn't mean if a person alleges that she's been raped, it's true, but it is a non-bailable offense. And I think we should warn more people about this because we've had instances where boss is a guy, the subordinate's a girl, and the girl will say na parang nagko-complain siya about sexual harassment or rape. And when that happens, kawawa yung mas mataas. Kawawa yung boss. It's really difficult and it's a criminal thing. You can actually go to jail for it. And it's really hard to disprove rape. So for me, good company should set a code of conduct, should actually talk about it seriously and decide whether this is allowable in your workplace or not. If you allow it, set guidelines as to what type of limitations you will allow, and the consequences. Like if this happens. Because when workplace relationships happen, sexual harassment allegations will soon follow. Because there might be times that it might not work out, right? So you have to prepare for that. If you don't allow it, make sure it's in your code of conduct, and make sure it's communicated early on. Okay? Because if you're going to make a policy after you discover the workplace relationship, it's really hard to discipline somebody because there were no rules to begin with. So I'm I'm not against workplace relationship. I do value discretion. So I've had relationships before with a colleague, but it was strictly professional elsewhere. Nobody else knew. So when we broke up, nobody knew. Okay. But it's different naman when it's allowed and it propagates. Because here in the Philippines, it's not just about girlfriend to boyfriend, but also take into consideration mistresses. May asawa na yung lalaki or babae, and this colleague is part of it. So you have to put that in your guidelines. Better be safe than sorry. So Adrian is saying, thank you so much, Rhea, Tina, Edward. These are interesting insights. Will relay the message to my friend. I have another question about sincerity. How to be sincere without being offensive? Because you want to say the truth, but being offended is in the other party. Sometimes it's beyond your control. How would you maintain that delicate balance? Because sometimes the sensitivity of a person varies depending on their experience, age, location, etc. Rhea?
Yes, thank you. That's correct. No, usually I do the sandwich approach, the
Oh,
positive, and say the comment, and then end with a positive note and encouraging. Maybe the message would also help if the tone is right,
mm-hmm,
and then check for understanding if you're aligned. Like, is it offensive? How are your thoughts about it? So ask also for feedback after you've given your piece. That might help. And if there are like rough edges, then you could further talk it out. But communication is always two way, so it's better to ask the person because you don't know the sensitivity level. And then say your intentions first. No, frame already the conversation that this is what you mean. This is your intention, and then before you say your comment or feedback. That's
mm. You
it.
mentioned a while ago that HR and company leaders should be open in providing, it should open themselves so that people are comfortable in providing feedback. But here in the Philippines, lalo na if you're
Mhm.
dealing with rank and file or newbies, maraming tao ang nahihiya. They get really shy or embarrassed and they don't want to speak out because they're not that confident with their answers yet. Diba? Kasi
Mhm.
minsan you're
Oo
talking
nga.
in a meeting, ang dami ninyo, and then if you give the spotlight to a person, the person's like,
Oh no.
it might create a lot more stress because
Mhm.
in the effort of you asking for feedback, they become more because they're not sure what the right answer was.
Mhm.
And everyone wants to impress. So how do you maintain that balance of giving people the chance to speak and making sure they're really comfortable in speaking because some people just don't feel that comfortable in speaking.
That's true. Uh, Normally, you if the HR or the boss could go down a few notches in their capacity or their culture, that would be better. So if you could use terms that are common, like let's say a boss saying, oh, dito na ang right time para magmarites tayo, no? So talk to me now para hindi na to kumalat. So if you could go down and use their terms, that would
Mm,
make them comfortable to open up, assuring them that it will not be taken against them. And then if this avenue is not, they're not comfortable yet, they can, talk to you directly in a different time and place until such a time that it's a we need to normalize conversations like these. Na sometimes these are tough ones but needed to be aired out. It takes
mm,
time, eh. So eventually, at first you'll have these parang hesitations. But pag nasanay na sila, it will become a part of your culture as an organization. That's what we want to establish later on for psychological safety.
Mm. There's a saying before that in the US that
Mm-hmm.
many of them consume pills to be happy. That,
Mm-hmm.
diba? Parang it's a they say they call it like the happy pill or the
Mm-hmm.
high performance pill. What is your general stance in mind you? Is it the last resort ba? Like what's the style that you handle workers' problems here? Do you just hand them a pill or that's just excessive last resort na talaga?
We advocate um, talking, really
Mm,
talking and expressing yourself freely without judgment. So
mm,
the first touch point is with the psychologist because neutral siya and you
mm,
don't know each other. So you could just be who you are. Um, that's why we have a lot of licensed psychologists ready for these employees that would want to air out. And from there, they could form, kasi case to case, no, situational siya, they could form now strategies on what to try. Tapos babalik bibigyan ng assignment yung employee and then they try to implement tapos babalik yun sa psychologist, okay, nag-work ba? Hindi. Then we re-strategize. So, parang
mm,
teammate mo si psychologist na, okay, let's try this. If not, and then along the way, there's emotional support, there's guidance from the psychologist. So, that's how we attack.
mm,
That's why a lot of people that we take care of book sessions. So, the utilization is really high because it's not just workplace problems. Pwedeng family
mm.
problems that affect work, minsan
Right,
love
yeah.
life, may ganun din. Love life, yung pati yung psychologist, doc, ano ba yung itetext ko sa kanya? May mga ganong advices. So anything that you're concerned with, we are
Mm.
concerned also as psychologists. Because at the end of the day, it would affect your role in your
Productivity.
family and your
Mm.
productivity at work. Mm-mm.
Is it because that these people just want to be heard? Kasi many of the problems then, as you've mentioned, was financial.
Mm-hmm.
Being with the wrong man or woman.
Mm-hmm.
Diba? Like you really like this person's ghosting you, so you don't really know what to do. Sometimes it's not a lack of family support,
That's true.
right? So you have kids, but you want to work because you need the income, but there's
Mm-hmm.
nobody to leave your kids. So
Mm-hmm.
what now? So a lot of the problems of a Filipino worker is personal.
Correct.
And many of them have problems because of money. They're the breadwinner of the family, and the mother wants to ask for a lot of money, or the sibling wants to ask for a lot of money, but it's no longer enough for them. How can a psychologist from Mind You address these problems given that sometimes these issues are structural? Meaning
Mm-hmm.
to say, like, ganun talaga yung kapatid mo, ganun talaga yung nanay mo, ganun
Oh,
talaga asawa mo. I mean, it's just unfortunate you married that type of person, right?
mm,
So
correct.
how would you address that given that, but they say like you just change the things that you can change.
Mm-hmm. we we have a as psychologists we are versed on solution focused brief therapy.
Okay.
There's a problem, we run down solutions, no? Pag
Mm,
na-try na natin lahat yon,
mm.
paakyatin ko na lang yung coping skills mo. It
Okay.
has I need to develop your coping skills in such a way that you won't resort to drinking or drugs.
Mm.
So positive coping skills has to be strengthened, and your emotional support, because there are things that we cannot
Ah,
sometimes change at the moment, right? Like you can't go and live alone, but so you're stuck with, let's say, toxic family members. uh
yes.
diba? Parang I can't, like you're saying,
Yes.
structural this time. So pag ganon, if we cannot change it, we have to find alternate ways to divert your energies, no? So dadamihan natin yung positive coping skills or activities
Mm.
that would compensate the parang toxicity. So
Right.
papaakyatin yung pleasurable activities and so on and so forth. So it's really looking at every facet of your life, from
Mm.
finances to relationships to your career goals, and see where we could adjust
Mm.
while we're waiting for the tide to change on things we cannot control as of the moment.
That's good. So
Mhm.
you were talking about coping techniques, diba? And because we're at the HR cafe, would you give us a little bit of a briefer on how people can increase their coping mechanisms? Because that's something we can change. We can't, as you were right, you can't change your mother or your siblings, yung mga kapatid mo. You can't change your spouse, but you
That's true.
can change the way you deal with your problem. So, would you share? Could you mind sharing with us how can we strengthen our the way that we deal with our problems?
Mm-hmm. um, it's really a process of changing our mindsets. So kailangan yung what happens on your thoughts, what you enter on your thoughts, it
Mm.
is congruent with how you feel and eventually your action. So the reason why we're in a crisis kasi our thoughts do not match how we feel. Parang you love your, let's
Our
say, spouse,
thoughts. Okay,
sometimes
go
do not
ahead.
match how you feel. So
Mm.
you know that you have obligations, but you're having a hard time, let's say, with your spouse. So parang hindi match, no? So there's incongruence. So the psychologist would fix those incongruences, and be able to deal with it. Now, when we go to coping, we have a lot of ways. We have go-to Filipino coping skills. Some of us would resort to spiritual coping, nagdadasal, di ba? Pinoy. So if that's effective, retain. We resort to sense of humor. We resort to positive, innate hopefulness. No, it's really checking what is effective. So psychologists would really give you options, and then you try it out for a week or two, and then you reassess. No, pero coping skills would also involve changing certain mindsets. No, and then supplement it with activities that you could control. So, andyan papasok yung mindfulness. Because sometimes when you're anxious, nakatira ka na sa future, no? You're scared of the future, worst possible outcome. You have to bring yourself to the present time because this is what you can
Mm.
control. So, a lot of mindfulness techniques, breathing techniques. Sometimes may financial literacy pa kami na na session if it's really if we're addicted to online sabong or something,
Yeah.
or those gaming, no? So a lot of behavioral modification as well, aside from the coping skill. So it's a really total life or behavioral change that we're looking into.
Mm. Well, we're almost at the end of the show. Would you mind having some last words first with Edward and then with Rhea, and then I'll close the show from my end?
Well, for me, very quickly, I just want to say, first of all, happy Father's Day to everybody.
Mm.
And to Mental Tina, Coach Darwin, thank you very much. Rhea, a pleasure. Um, and I guess to the audience, thank you for taking your time. To those who are live on Father's Day to listen, I think these are really important topics, and it's something, especially now in the Philippines. I've been here 5 years. I have a Filipino family. That in the Philippines we discuss more and more and more, and I'm glad that there's that this environment provides an opportunity for people to discuss what could be potentially very sensitive topics. Rhea?
Yep, thanks, Ed. Thank you for the opportunity on having us. We would like to advocate having more honest conversations like these. No, this is a start of cultural change. Our concept of mental health might be generational already, but it's not too late to open up and acknowledging that mental health concerns are real and it might affect ourselves and our family and our loved ones. So take a preventative approach on yourself right now. Assess, I invite you for an introspection. That's a deep reflection of your current situation. What do I need? Do I need love? Do I need care? Do I need support? No, because everything starts with you, and then hopefully you'll create a plan, um, not just for your mental health, but your physical health and your social well-being. These are the components of health, and continuously improve. So it's just that mindset that I'll be better each day. So start your mental health journey, whether it's with Mind You, whether it's for your own, no, but start now.
Mm.
Back to you, Mentor Tina.
uh, Everyone has problems. You, me, everyone has issues. But the real clincher, the difference between everyone is how we can capably deal with our problems. Rhea was able to explain to us a while ago how quickly mental health issues, to grow from being a small problem to a huge problem when it's not properly addressed. Kasi it's like a balloon wherein you add in some air. If you add in a little of air, it's fine. It's a very limp balloon. But the more air you add to it, the more the problems do accumulate. It comes to a point that the person cannot deal with the problems anymore, and that person can explode. That's the reason why it's important for us to have an outlet to share our stresses. A lot of people think that our problems can be solved with money, but sometimes money cannot be found. It's not something that we can control. A lot of times we say na, alam mo, pag once I leave my husband, once I leave this company, once I leave this house, my problems will already go away. And when they actually find the freedom to do so, they realize that the problems have damaged them to the point that they still carry these issues with them in a new house, with a new husband, with a new company. And that's why they're like, well, I want to leave this place again. So it becomes a cycle of always running away from your problems because you don't capably deal with your problems right then and there. And people think that, oh, if I see a psychiatrist or a psychologist, it's a failure of me. It's may kulang sa akin. There's something missing with me, or it's really very expensive. And what Edward was able to say a while ago is that Mind You is one of the companies that can provide a listening ear for a not so expensive price. 'Di ba? In 2 months time they'll be launching a B2C, a business to consumer program, which gives you a chance to book for a session with a trained psychologist who will help you deal with your problems productively in a very anonymous way. And hopefully this can actually de-stress you in a way that parang you can work more um more productively. So I think all the answers are in our hands. The question is, do we want to take it? Because even if Mind You exists and even if the service is free, would you still take it? And even if you do it, will you listen to it? Will you actually make active change in the way you think? Because at the end of the day, everyone has problems. But how you deal with it changes the way you decide and changes the way parang things happen to you. For me, I don't advocate running away with problems. I advocate staying put, dealing with it properly. Kasi if you keep on trying to say, well, my problems are gonna go if my boss leaves. And what if your boss doesn't leave? Or what if your boss does leave and is replaced by another boss? You cannot change your problems sometimes. Sometimes you cannot control them. But what you can control is how you deal with your problems. And Rhea was correct. When we were young, there's no special course in grade school or high school or college that tells you how to deal with your problems. And maybe it's because of that we grow up being stunted on that. So for me, if you have the opportunity, this is one way for you to reach out and actually fix that, because it fixes the core, your core of, because once you're able to handle all your problems capably, there is no problem that you cannot face. Kahit anong problema na itapon sa'yo, kayang-kaya mong solusyonin. Kasi hindi yung problema yung problema. How you handle it is the problem. And the best way to do so is to learn coping mechanisms, to strengthen your resolve, to strengthen the way you think. And with that, we hope that companies would give Mind You a chance, because it's a way for the employees to know that such organizations exist. Tama si Edward. We always think it's expensive. It's not always expensive. And sometimes the benefit of seeking help when you need it and when the problem is still small is better than waiting until the problem explodes and it's too big for the company already to handle. And with that, we'd like to thank you for joining us at the HR Cafe. We'd like to invite you again for next Sunday at 3 o'clock for another productive free learning for people in the HR space and otherwise. So happy Father's Day all, and thank you so much for tuning in to our show. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thanks. Bye bye.